the time management.
Then, so Anita's presentation is on Armenian art and collective identity from 1915 to 2015, evolutionary stages of repatriated Armenian diaspora art with special focus on Lebanon. Anita is coming from Beirut. Sure. Welcome.
Hima? Okay. Hello, I'm coming from Beirut, and I'm presenting the Armenian art during the 100 years post-genocide. I will start by defining Armenian art. So, the efforts to define Armenian art in modern times started in the early 19th century, and it has been a hot subject for debate ever since. The Armenian diaspora, as Dr. Hajik Toloyan said, that we do not have a land and we do not have an authority above us, so the Armenian diaspora is not a government. It has no official institutions. It has not yet developed a program to consolidate and examine its 100-year artistic production. There are no established norms for the appreciation of Armenian art. Therefore, our understanding Armenian diaspora art has always been purely subjective and based on opinions and personal taste. My interest in the studying of Armenian art goes back to the mid-1990s. A group of Armenian artists, architects, writers, poets, archaeologists, photographers, students, and enthusiasts met regularly every Monday at the Garden Tower Hotel in Antilyas, Lebanon, to discuss Armenian cultural and identity issues. Local and international guests frequently visited this forum. The initiative was named the Monday Forum, and it was hosted by the owner of the hotel, Mr. Mgerdich Buldukian. The heated debate lasted for more than a decade, and the question of what Armenian art is came up very frequently. But it was never fully resolved. Therefore, the Monday Forum members came to the conclusion that if the artist is Armenian, then the artwork is Armenian art. How do I? Yeah, this was the formula. This is a picture of Armenian artists at an exhibition. I will talk about it. Yeah. Okay. For example, in 1999, an all-Armenian art show was organized in Beirut by the Monday Forum and the Roshan Gallery under the title of Armenian Artists 50 Years in Lebanon. The work of every Armenian artist in Lebanon was exhibited there, including the new, the old, the dead, and the absent. And there were no painted Ararats in that exhibition, nor symbols of Armenian identity, with rare exceptions. The show was Armenian only because the artists were Armenian. Clearly, we need a method to examine 100 years of the Armenian diaspora art production, so let us begin by defining art in very, very short way. Art is extremely hard to define. It is a mental, psychological activity and not just an object. I have built a career, personally, of perpetually producing art definition over 30 years to understand what is art. One of my definitions for art is the following. Art is the distance between reality and possibility. These are the names of artists who participated in that exhibition. You can look at it later. So art is the distance between reality and possibility. Identity can be as simple as a name or an adjective, or it can be as complex as the relationship of a person with the whole universe, including the past, present, and future. I also have developed a definition for identity that says, identity is an interplay of three sets of factors that cause the existence of the person, factors that impact the lifelong existence of a person or a group, and factors that individual or group can and will employ to survive and evolve. There are three different categories in identity, many different categories. It can be identity, legal identity, social identity, public identity. So in its narrow psychological sense, identity is a feeling, an internal compass, a conscious self-positioning tool that constantly regulates mechanisms of existence, like it includes beliefs, feelings, thoughts, behaviors, expressions, creations, choices, actions, in the struggle to exist and survive within and beyond the limit of specific time and place. Art, in my opinion, works the same way. Art and identity are almost the same thing. They work the same way, but on the unconscious level. Art starts to operate when conscious mechanisms of existence shake and weaken. So, since identity is a huge area, we limit the term Armenian identity into two definitive points for this paper. When an artist presents himself or herself in the public as essentially Armenian artist, and second point is when the themes of their works is Armenian-related themes. So we narrow it down when we are talking about art in this paper. Assuming these categories, these theories about identity, we proceed to see what are the evolutionary stages of 100-year diaspora art production. Of course, I can say that I cannot include all the artists because of narrow time. And I can say also we can identify 7 evolutionary stages of artistic activity. I can say also that artists do not necessarily belong to a stage due to their age or belonging. So one artist can belong into 2 stages also, they can evolve. Also, I have talked mainly about Lebanese artists, but I have examples from other places to show the similarities. First is the survival stage. The first generation artists witnessed the genocide as children. Most of them were orphaned. Some were raised in orphanages. They lost everything and lived lives of deprivation and inner chaos. Their sense of identity was seriously shaken. They literally did not know who they were and what to think about themselves. What was the psychological solution for this situation? To deny. Denial is the first psychological stage for coping with loss and grief. Feelings of pain, shame, guilt, longing, separation, illness, poverty, insecurity, and discrimination had to be suppressed in order to survive. For artists, Armenian identity was psychological burden to conceal rather than to express. The solution was to create a mask and pretend to be someone else. Actually, art provides this alternative identity to all artists, anytime, anywhere. Most of the early artists adopted artistic pseudonyms, and they did not say about their name, and adopted artistic styles that were modern, bright, candid, peaceful, beautiful, and hopeful. Examples are Arshil Gorky, whose name was Vostanik Adoyan, Jean Carzou in France, Karnik Zulumyan, Galens, Harutyun Harmandayan, who was in Lebanon and then went to Armenia, Jean Guvder from Lebanon, his name is Hovannes Guvderelyan. So you can see Arshil Gorky. Arshil Gorky belongs to 2 stages. We see how he is trying to be in the international trend of art making. This is Jean Carzou, his portrait with Dali. Jean Carzou's work, he's in France. Another, so we can see the peaceful and trying to be in the path of the international art movement. Harutyun Galens, also from Lebanon, a portrait, self-portrait for Harutyun Galens. Guvder, a Lebanese artist. The second stage is the awakening stage. Again, this is Arshil Gorky's work. Now we can change how we can see how his style has changed. The awakening stage, artists internalized host country's language, culture, art norms, and became part of the artistic community in a settlement land. Being internally Armenian and publicly artists was a skill they started to accept and master. Soon they regained a minimum sense of safety. A few artists dared to revisit the traumatic experiences and express their inner turmoil in uncommon and ambiguous ways, understandable only to those who knew. Examples are Archil Gorky in America and Georges Guve, Kevork Guverginyan in Lebanon. How my mother's embroidered apron unfolds in my life, Archil Gorky. 1 year in milkweed, Archil Gorky. Georges Guve is one of my favorites. This is maybe Hiroshima. Again, Georges Guve, Apocalypse. So we see that the painting has started to be ambiguous and internationally known as a new style of surrealism or whatever, but we know that there is an internal turmoil going on. The third stage is the mourning stage, lamenting. Survival for the Armenian refugees meant running, hiding, denying, and working hard, but the pain did not go. It was just silenced, and the tears were postponed. One survivor has said, "I threw the body of my dead mother in a well with my own hands, and I did not feel anything at that time." But later they felt and talked. The mourning generation was being born. They heard, they absorbed horror stories of traumatized parents. Being artists at this stage meant being captured inside a traumatic painting or photograph. These artists spent a lifetime of processing the inherited collective suffering with art. So Jean Sem in France, Jean Sem again, Jean Semerjian, Krikor Norigyan, Madness, Krikor Norigyan, Man Yelling. Also, this is the photograph of Anes Cerejian Shiraz. I like to mention him because he is the first person who decided to go and photograph the historic Armenian architecture and antiquities in the early 60s. The Phoenix stage. In 1965, Armenians of Lebanon and, of course, elsewhere commemorated the 50th anniversary of the genocide. It was a moment of rising from the ashes and ending the collective mourning. The art scene had expanded, but critics, galleries, and collectors exercised a relative influence on Armenian artist production. They preferred to see a modern art comparable with the global art movements. Therefore, they discourage Armenianhood in artworks. I personally have heard harsh criticism by Lebanese Armenian critics describing artists who painted Armenian themes as exploiters of Armenianhood. հայկականությունը շահագործողներ, or even beggars. Integrating in the host countries and being accepted as such was the higher goal of this generation artists. They distanced from the Armenian worries and focused on developing their own artistic styles. However, they contributed to Armenian functions when they were asked to. Zaven Khadashian was commissioned to make a genocide monument in Big Faya, and Paul Giragosyan was commissioned to make a painting for the same occasion. This is Paul Giragosyan. I didn't find that painting. I have seen it before. And Zaven made this famous sculpture. Okay. 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 So this is Zaven's style, but he made exceptionally this painting, this sculpture. This is from Ani, I think, or Van, yes. It's not running. Okay. Again, Shiraz. And Paul Giragosyan, this is his style. So we can see they were worried about style. Zaven. Okay. Okay, Zaven in his studio. I saw this picture in depot yesterday, so I included it. Okay. Seta Manukyan, another figure of this state, became a symbol of integration. She was involved with the immediate worries of Lebanon and Palestine, the poor, the refugee, and the wounded, and portrayed it far more genuinely than anyone else at the time, even in Lebanon. Yeah. Seta Manukyan. Later she became a Buddhist monk. She is not an artist anymore. Yeah, another, the politicians of Lebanon. She portrayed them far earlier than anyone else in the 70s. And there is the inquisitive stage. In this section, I can only talk about my work. In the early 90s, I started to question the purpose of art because it did not have much reality, much relation with real life. I made art to make commentary about art and define and redefine it, but I also used it as a platform to make commentaries on special occasions and emergent events, Armenian or other. For me, art must be an instant reaction about the reality that we live and not just a style. For example, in the 1999 Armenian art show that I had mentioned, this is me in an installation. So I decided to express my Armenianhood for the first time to respect the title of the show. I presented 4 installations, works, and a video. And this is an installation about... Oh. Yeah. So I presented 4 installations, one about Arshil Gorky's Wish Tree and Hrimian Hayrik's Paper Ladle, and a work emphasizing my dual identity. And this is a work about commenting about the show, like if they want me to make an aquarelle, I use this faucet to present an aquarelle in a installation way. And this is okay. Yes, another work, Tuchte Sherep. Okay, another work. So, same way, these works, of course, they were not received very well because they were not paintings and they were too Armenian. So the trend was not to be Armenian. Again, another example is when Hrant assassination was a shock to the whole world. Hours later, Robert Fisk wrote his famous 1,101 sentence in the Independence. I immediately turned this number into an artwork and started to reproduce it and distribute it for free for people whom I knew that will be interested. So, the centennial stage, some lucky artists had the chance to show their work in Istanbul in 1915. They told personal narratives, exposed family secrets, and they sang in the in memoriam concert. This was a precious opportunity to say things where it should be said. The unthinkable became possible only because of one man, Hrant, Dink, who broke our unanimous silence with his life. However, the wider picture shows that Armenian artists of the diaspora are integrated members of their societies. They have established artistic careers of universal quality, not only in visual arts, but also in film, music, and other. Not only they do not have inner conflict to express Armenianhood when they feel like it, but also, on the contrary, it is a privilege and a source of pride to do so. This is Sarkis Zabunian, born in Istanbul, and his work at the Venice Biennale, 56th Venice Biennale, in memoriam concert. And last stage I want to mention, the repair stage, I think. This is a hopeful new venture that is being paved by cultural institutions like Depot Istanbul and Hrant Dink Foundation and Gulbenkian Foundation examples. It is the efforts of these institutions, more than the artists. They enable free expression, encounters, dialogue, cooperation, initiatives and friendships between Armenian and Turkish individuals. This picture is from Depot 2009. And these are the Depot and Hrant Dink Foundation buildings. So Armenian and Turkish individuals can work and cooperate. And there is a very curious phenomenon becoming apparent. Armenian and Turks hate each other at a distance, but when they actually meet and talk, there is so much love happening. What is the secret? Thank you.